everyone, welcome to Vicious Cycle, the podcast about periods and the people who get them. In this episode, we're so excited to be joined once again by comedian Molly Sanchez. You know her from last season on Vicious Cycle and from her own podcast, Read All Over. She joined us to talk about the sweeping 1990s novel, The Red Tent, which we read on the break between seasons. If you haven't read the book, it might be worth just real quick hitting pause, doing a quick Wikipedia catch-up, but honestly, I think you'll enjoy the episode, even if you didn't read or don't remember the book. We had so much fun drinking wine, comparing Red Tent characters to Sex and the City characters, and at the end we did a really awesome Why I Cried, and we just laughed so much. So enjoy the episode.
Hey listeners, we are so excited for today's episode. We've got one of our good friends back in the studio with us, Molly Sanchez.
Woo!
Hey!
Thank you for having me.
Molly, how have you been?
I have missed you guys a lot.
Aww.
I have missed you guys a lot, but I've been spreading the gospel about withdrawal bleeds to everybody I know. So I've kept you in my heart.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
Well, for those who don't recall, one of our last episodes of season 1, we had Molly in to build a book club with us called Bleeding Rainbow. Brilliant. And we read The Red Tent. So let's get into it. Let's launch Bleeding Rainbow.
Hit it.
Periods in the book. I think I'll take a look. We love to read. We have to bleed. A bleeding rainbow.
Bleeding rainbow.
Bleeding rainbow.
So close. So good.
So the book we read was The Red Tent by Anita Diamant. I forget which year those came out.
It was published in 97.
Okay.
Bill Clinton was president. Dolly was
simpler
cloned.
time.
Heaven's Cult.
Wow.
Heaven's Gate
Ooh.
Cult.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, 97 was a good year.
It was a good
Meg
year.
directed an entire show about 1997, so she knows everything that happened that
Molly
year.
wrote for that one.
Oh,
We're pretty-
yes!
Wait, hold on, time out. We have to say what we're drinking and eating.
Oh, yes, of course,
Okay.
of course.
Molly Sanchez, the loveliest, brought us a bottle of red wine and some honeyed cakes.
Yes.
Yes.
Because in the book, when the women go to the Red Tent, they always have like a feast of honey cakes in the shape of vaginas. I couldn't do that.
Are they really? Does it say that?
Yeah, it
Okay.
says they're
Oh,
like
are they like
Triangle.
yeah, they're triangle shaped. I looked up a picture of it. It does not look like a vagina that I have seen, but it is very triangular. So they have that, and they drink real sweet wine. I think more like meaty than what we're having, but. Yeah,
It really
sounds so
plays
nice.
into the idea that we've always been craving a lot of food on our moon cycle.
Absolutely.
And just like the book, we are all sitting pantsless on some hay right now.
Yes.
So that is
Correct.
accurate to the book.
Chihuahuas.
I have thoughts about the hay. I really want to talk about this.
All right, we'll get there.
So this is a book. Anita Diamant, just for some background, is this Jewish scholar. She's written so many like nonfiction books about Jewish culture, and so it makes sense that she took on this biblical story of this woman who is mentioned once in Genesis as kind of an afterthought, and she sort of fills in her whole history. So it tells the story first of these women who live in the desert and who all somehow become married to the same man. We got your Rachel, your Leah, your Bilhah, your Zilpah. I don't think I'm leaving anybody out.
That's all.
And they marry a man named Jacob. They go on to, between all of them, sire many sons and one daughter. And this is the daughter that they take with them into the Red Tent, which is a place where once a month every woman in their neighborhood goes to menstruate and talk and laugh and share secrets.
Can I ask a question? Are they all menstruating at the same time?
I
was
me
so
to believe
confused.
that. Yeah.
And apparently it's synced with the moon. Like apparently
Is
they're
that
all
how
synced
it used
with the
to
moon.
be?
I wondered
So
that.
I think maybe when you have less like interference from things like birth control, and when you're all basically like eating almost the exact same diet,
Can you imagine?
you're growing up together. I know that whole like syncing up of periods doesn't necessarily hold water, but I just think like if all those factors are the same every single day for generations, I feel like that just makes you more in tune.
Yeah.
So anyway, they have this one daughter who they bring up in the Red Tent. They move, their family moves closer to Egypt and in coming into contact with Egypt, the daughter falls in love with a prince there, is either raped or romanced, depending on which version of the story you read, and somehow through exacting revenge, her father basically circumcises and kills everybody in that family. She lays a curse,
like you do. Classic in-laws meeting kind of thing.
and then she kind of lives the rest of her life as a single person, almost. So yeah, that's the short version of the story. Did you guys like this book?
I liked it in the end. I feel like it took a while to get into everything, and I was like, where's the blood? And I actually wrote in my notes, this story really picks up when Rachel bleeds on an icon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it took 100 pages to pick up, and I was like, yes, we're getting somewhere. And I really liked the last third of the book. Yeah,
I liked it. Okay, I don't think this would ever have been a book that I would have read, but I'm glad I did. I told my mom I was reading it, and she was like, "Oh, that stupid book." I think Kathleen. I think it's too woo woo for her, and then I thought about it, and I was like, "Yeah, it is very." Maybe that's why I'm not really into it. It's very much sisterhood.
What do you think?
I loved it.
Okay, me too.
I like the prologue.
this really tracks.
Oh my god, the prologue made me cry.
Me
And
too.
it was every chapter
Oh my
made
God,
me
me
cry.
too.
No, I mean,
Oh, wow.
I wrote down. I thought it was beautifully written, and I wrote down a lot of favorite passages, but I don't think I cried once.
Oh my god, I had a hard time stopping crying after I finished it, and Kevin was like, "Are you
what
okay?"
about why?
I cried
Explain
in the end.
explain
So
why.
I can explain after you.
For me, I love the power of menstruation in the book, but above everything else, it's this idea that she sets up of continuing women's stories.
Thinking about
And
it.
just it's really beautiful. It's I continue the story of my mother, and I hope that by the end this woman is named after Dina, and she's and maybe my story will continue through her. But it's when you think about it from the Bible, where women's were just left completely out of it, it's such a beautiful thing to do for the women of these stories, to be
no, I get that.
telling the story.
Yeah.
That's what chokes me up too, is the whole the idea that when Dina leaves, it's no surprise that all of her mothers with her.
Yeah.
Is there's so much of connection between mothers and daughters that is so sacred and will always be, and it just, oh my god, it destroys me.
Oh, it's
I am dead.
brutal. And when she's hearing after she'd left what had happened to all the mamas. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's good. I'm glad that we got some differing opinions.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, let's talk about your thoughts about menstruation in the book.
I want to know the logistics of this red tent.
Sure.
Because I had assumed that the whole book would take place inside the red tent. And I was like, why aren't we there? Why are we out in the...
Why are we talking
Let's
about
get back to that tent. It's safe. Men don't want to come in because they're so disgusted by it.
Yeah.
Which is smart on the women's part.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the logistics of the red tent. So what do you see when you walk in?
Ooh. I see. In my head, it's low. It's low. It's not super low. I think you can stand, but it's low, and there's just piles of hay, that you perch on like a goose.
Right, because that's the thing. I don't think there's any kind of pad situation, so they're just I'm
free
doing it
bleeding.
with my body, but it's they're just
They're squatting.
straddling hay and letting the blood flow into it.
Do they
You're right,
catch
like a
it?
goose. In some cases,
Yeah,
right?
right?
So, but not everybody, I think.
What do you guys envision when you see the tent? Are we talking is there I don't know?
Do people
Are there
have
rugs?
same seats? Is it a same seat situation?
Or their
it
name
has
tags?
to be. I think it's the Seven Dwarfs where your name is on your little hay.
Yeah.
I think I don't mean to bring up the old adage, but I think it's probably stank in there.
Yeah. I mean, no,
it's,
that's
not
accurate.
I think because people I think are not bathing in that time super frequently, and on top of that you have all this fresh blood and I imagine it being hot in there.
Yeah.
So I think it's stank, but I think there's at the point where you don't notice it.
Yeah.
But it also, honestly, gang, it sounds like so much fucking fun.
So much
Yes.
fun.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Singing
agree.
songs, braiding hair.
I definitely romanticized it too hard in my head. I like walk in, there's candles, there's pillows.
Okay.
The hay is
Netflix
like
is on in the corner.
right, yeah. And like there's just wine, there's just men pouring wine.
Yeah.
I also kept, no matter how hard I tried, I imagined the tent was actually red, which I'm sure,
I think it is.
Oh.
Well, actually, maybe that's more of like what goes on within
Right,
it is
yeah.
red, but I don't know. I picture
I imagine
it red.
like red flowing cloth.
No, I see that.
Okay.
I see that.
I definitely think it's like drunk Aunt-a-Palooza, which is my favorite kind of vibe. As you know, like everything I write is that. But it's definitely got that vibe where like people are getting drunk and like sharing secrets that they're not supposed to.
There's a
Singing
lot of.
songs.
I imagine them all naked.
Oh, that's a good point. I
They're
don't
not
know.
Winnie Poohing it.
It's like when the three of us went to that Korean spa and we just were all walking around naked.
Yeah.
That's what I imagine.
But then
this
for a
is.
while we actually just wore towels around our waist but had our boobs out.
Yeah.
It's my
yeah.
favorite go-to towel move.
I love that.
Boobs
Tits out.
Yeah,
I think
but
that's
everything
a
else
very
covered.
confident move.
Oh,
and
it feels
I
so
support
good.
you.
It's a power move.
Well, what is cool about this that I didn't realize until this reading of it is like your week or whatever in the red tent is like the only weekend you get.
yeah.
When you are
Oh.
a woman in those times, you get basically they kind of lay out like 2 to 3 times when you can be lazy and relax. And one is this like 1 week a month where you are menstruating, and that doesn't even happen until a certain time in your life necessarily. 2 is in your like honeymoon week, but even then you're probably like getting pounded on the reg, so it might not be as relaxing as you want depending on who you marry. Apparently if you marry Jacob, it's like a dope time all the time.
I mean, apparently.
Oh yeah.
And then the third time is potentially when you're like laid up from childbirth.
Right.
So those are the only times in your life that you can have a break from all this honestly 24/7 work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
A
that
lot
really
of
made me
serving.
appreciate it more.
Like,
so much serving. So that is what I like most about it.
I just remembered. So you were just talking about the smell of it. One of the passages I had written down was, I don't know, it's out of context now what quote this is, but I imagine it's from Dina. It's after because she talks about getting her period. I was squatting to relieve myself when I noticed a smear on my thigh. It was brown
Yes.
rather than red.
I
Definitely.
wrote that down.
So
Yeah.
the two quotes that I was going to read were both Rachel bleeding on the idol
Oh, so
and
good.
it's brown.
But then she goes, my blood will flow into the fresh straw, filling the air with the salt smell of women. So salty, which I would have never
Add that to the song.
add that. Add it.
Yeah.
Add it, Meg.
That's on page 170 of the trade paperback version. I know because I wrote a note that said 170, all caps. It's brown. I love everybody's story of their like first period because it reminds me like it's so funny how timeless those stories are. Even though this is Anita Diamond imagining what it is like, it's still like Dina could call into this podcast and be like,
She'd have some stories.
absolutely. In addition, I wanted to say I felt a kinship with Rachel, who on page 24, like me, also faked her period.
I wrote that down too.
Yes, right.
I wrote that down too. She crushed berries into her
boy.
thighs.
Same Z.
Yeah.
Mine was berry Tweety toothpaste. Let's go back to Dina's first time as a woman in the red tent. Now, gang, I read a lot of books, but this image of how they treat her when she gets her period sticks with me in a horrifying way.
What? Really?
In like a very beautiful coming of age way that I would like to incorporate parts of it. But the thing that like makes me die is the part when they've got her real drunk. First of all, this is like a 12-year-old that they're just wasting. They take her outside and they use a statue basically to break her hymen.
Yes. Okay. Was that supposed to? Yes. Okay.
It is
So
horrifying
upsetting.
to me. I have literary reasons why I like it, but every time I read that, I'm like, oh God,
Yeah.
Full disclosure, I was confused during that part,
okay.
and I read it again, and I was like, what are they doing? And I thought it was just their way of collecting blood, but it was their way of like producing more blood to like give to the earth, or just to make her a woman. And like,
Yeah.
it is like an uncomfortable scene. Like part of it is amazing, and like you love when like the women like bring her in and like pamper her, and you know, like that's exactly what you want when you're on your period. And then the ritual, I'm like, oh damn, that's intense.
That is intense.
Yeah.
But it is interesting too because it kind of gets used against her later in the bartering, because when they are trying to say, you know, why Jacob should or shouldn't give her to the prince's family, the prince's family counters by saying like she didn't even have a hymen, so like I think she's like the seal is broken basically.
I thought they said that because she'd already had sex before they were married.
They said they doubled down on it, I think. So it just, I think what is interesting, and this happens in a couple different times in the book, it's when the people from the country understand things way differently in this arena than people from the city. So the people from the country have this ritual where the women sort of, for lack of a better word, take your hymen, and the people from the city think that that's like the man's job to do.
And it was pretty much like that Dina's family, like the women in her family, this was a unique thing that their family, that they made the period so precious. And when her one cousin didn't get this same treatment, the grandmother like disowned the cousin.
Yes.
I know.
I like hurt for her. That was so painful. Like her best friend / cousin is just like, you're banished because your mom didn't do the ritual.
Yeah. That was one of the first things I wrote in my little note doc. I said, grandmother slaps the shit out of a Both, Tabia's mother, for not capturing her first blood. Damn.
Is that Rebecca?
Yeah.
Rebecca's
Rebecca
a
grandmother.
stone cold
Oh my
bitch.
god. Oh my god.
Oh, the one thing I want to say about the whole like horrifyingness of the period ceremony is the non-horrifying parts did make me feel like I want to make periods special for my offspring.
Yeah.
And my family, the Hispanic side of my family does this thing where like they buy the girls like a bouquet of roses. And that didn't happen to me. And my mom is like very open and nice, but it was always like I definitely had a sense that like my period is like secret. And I don't want it to be so secret in my family. I want it to be like really celebrated because it is a special thing, and it is sort of like, unfortunately, it's ushering you from girlhood into womanhood, and womanhood is really, really beautiful, but also fucking hard.
Yeah. It's scary.
And it'll be, less hard when our daughters are alive, but hard in different ways. So it's worth it to be like, welcome. Here you go.
Yeah, I agree. And I was like, because one, I loved the idea of like welcoming someone into this, like, you know, monthly, totally normal, healthy thing, you know, and to make it as something to look forward to, you know, that's kind of awesome because every month now we're just kind of like, oh fuck
you
it.
guys, I feel like this podcast is the reason I look forward to my period now, because I write funny stories down.
Yeah,
It totally is. And just the fact that like
we're the Red 10.
we are. You are. You so are.
Welcome to our Red 10, Molly.
I'm so happy to be here.
you can bleed with us anytime. I think one of the other things that kind of constantly made me cry throughout the book was all the midwifery. And like the
that was so
bringing
cool.
in of life. And one of the things I wrote down as like something that made me cry was the legend of Inanna, and just this one line: life comes from between our legs and life costs blood. It's just like, damn, that's a good line.
Wow. I mean, the only thing I could think of in every scene where there was a baby giving birth was like, oh my God, how horrible was childbirth up until probably 1937. I know. Like, honestly.
Imagine having an episiotomy drunk on wine. Like, that's about all
and
you
like,
get.
and how, I mean, and I don't think this is apocryphal. I'm pretty sure this is how it was, where midwives could just like see a pregnant belly and know exactly what to do. Like they were so in tune with the body and like how it gurgled or how it looked, like, oh, that baby's breached or whatever. Like I was just like, damn.
I gotta tell you, midwifery is one of my fucking all-time favorite subjects for anything. I will like, just
she just did a line of midwifery.
I love that shit. So yeah, this book is extremely my shit. And then the sort of quote about babies that I like is on page 56. babies only come when women smile. I was like, yes, consent is so important.
Oh, I love that.
Nice.
Oh, I didn't even. Yeah, I love that.
That's nice.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to me about your feelings about the sex.
Oh, I
scene.
just thought it was so funny that there were so many parts where they would just be weeping and having sex, but I don't think it was like a weeping of like pain. It was just like they were so happy.
Are you trying to say you've never been brought to climax?
I mean,
Come on, be honest.
no. I don't
too
think
pragmatic
I've
for that.
ever
Has
cried.
anyone here ever climaxed?
Like twice. maybe.
but it felt
But
like.
I have to be like, the hormones.
Wait,
have
are
to
you
be right.
crying out of joy? Out of?
I think
Out
just
of
like
joy.
all of the like, it's like your
Oh.
body's
Feelings?
apex, where it's just like, oh, it's so much.
I don't know. Maybe I just felt that there were so many scenes where like they were just like, and then we weeped in each other's arms for
Yeah.
hours, and I'm like, boo. Like, this sounds boring. Let's get back to the doing it. I don't know. I don't think
fair.
I've ever weeped.
I mean,
Oh, I've weeped. I'm gonna say it. Oh man.
I haven't wept.
Oh, is that with a word? Okay, thanks,
I've
English
I haven't
major.
wept.
No, if
Weeped.
your vagina out, it's weep.
That's really
But I
funny.
definitely like.
Weeping and seeping is what I call it.
I've queefed.
You've
Trifecta if you're weeping, seeping, and queefing.
That's the true devil's three-way.
That
right
is the
there.
devil's
It's the wine. We've been drinking
Yeah.
wine.
Yeah.
I wrote down that if an arranged marriage meant that I get to have sex with Jacob, like, sign me the fuck up.
Jacob sounded like a
Right.
babe.
Until he wasn't,
a
which
fi-
makes me so mad.
Yes! So
Um,
upsetting.
Yeah, I thought, so researching some of the book and like seeing some of the reviews, it was interesting because there are like some like differences between like the biblical telling of the story
Right.
and Anita's first name basis.
Please explain.
Well, like one of the interesting ones I saw, which I'm not a super Bible person. And in fact, my familiarity with the story was from Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Okay.
Which is about her brother Joseph.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's that Joseph.
And so like some of the things like they're like the brother selling him into slavery, the brother's like committing murder. Those are all like songs in
So
the
that's
musical.
a biblical
Blowing my
story.
mind.
Yes.
Okay.
Is Dina
Got it.
in that
So-
musical?
No, not at all. It's all about her
Damn it.
brothers.
So what happened? Can I take this?
Yeah, yeah.
It's in Genesis, and it talks about sort of it begins talking about the relationship with Jacob and Leah, and sometimes it sidesteps Rachel, and it just goes to Bilhah or Zilpah, where in Leah is like the woman of the family, and Bilhah and Zilpah are the sort of handmaids. So, Leah is barren, and so says, basically, put my handmaid on my chest and have sex with her, like on top of me, basically.
Like Handmaid's Tale?
Exactly. So I'll connect this. So, and whatever baby this handmaid has is our baby. And so that's how they beget the sons of Jacob. So in Handmaid's Tale, the show and the book, the handmaids are trained at a place called the Rachel and Leah Center.
What?
They are the organization that the men belong to, that is like the usurper bad guys, is called the Sons of Jacob. And Gilead, which is the name of the sort of new city-state that they live in, is a biblical term which means city drenched in blood.
What?
So
This is so crazy.
This is a really important text to read. It's just a fun text to read if you like The Handmaid's Tale. But
Whoa.
Which you do because you have a podcast about it, which is called
read all over.
Download It.
Yeah,
Listen to it.
But the big difference between this story in the Bible and the Red Tent is, in the story in the Bible, Dina is stolen from the family
Okay.
and raped by the prince.
That's the biblical
Right.
context. Got it.
Right. And it's just like a one sentence, like
Yeah.
Dina, the daughter, who we haven't mentioned before. Anyhow, Dina was raped. And they
Anywho,
went
she
to-
was brutally
Any
raped.
hoodly doodle.
Right. So they're like, Dina was raped. They exact their judgment, and she went crazy and cursed the sons of Jacob. Whereas what's great about this retelling is it gives her agency.
Yeah.
Right.
And it gives her like sexual and romantic agency that the
Yes.
Bible didn't think to give her.
Right.
And it you know, it becomes less of a story of like brothers avenging honor as it is men stealing agency and romantic agency from women. And it's fucked up.
Yeah.
So fucked up.
I wanted to point out that we've talked about this in like ancient times, how people would use tampons, and then we sort of talked about contraception. And early on, Leah, I think, is the one who keeps getting pregnant, right? By Jacob. There was one point in the book where she soaks a lock of wool in olive oil and places it in the mouth of her womb. Yeah. And we had talked about that, like putting oil up your vagina and stuff, which is fennel to keep
Fennel.
Jacob's seed from taking root.
Fennel.
Like, man, the things that women have to do to like not get pregnant.
Yeah.
Just come on the chest.
Come on.
Come on, get creative. Especially parts 1 and 2. I just kept waiting. Honestly, I kept waiting for the terrible rape. I just felt like there was going to be some graphically told rape story. And I was just like, I can't. I really, like, I'm trying to protect myself these days.
Yeah.
So I haven't read Handmaid's Tale yet.
Tale. That's fine. It's not a uplifting book.
Right, yeah. So I need to, like, be emotionally strong for it.
Let's wait till Kamala gets elected,
Yes.
and then we can all
Yeah.
dive into Handmaid's Tale.
But so, like, parts 1 and 2, I was just, like, apprehensive. And then the terrible thing in part 2 happens. Or maybe it's part 3.
What terrible?
But, like, the prince getting
Yes.
killed.
Oh,
and
yeah,
Dina's,
yeah.
like, life kind of, you know.
Right after like the really good sex scene,
Yeah.
I'm like, I haven't even been able to recover.
Yeah.
They're weeping in bed.
They're
Yeah.
weeping all
So
over each
sad.
other.
Seep and
So then by the time it got to
Row.
yeah.
It's very
So
hard to
it's a
say.
tough name.
Elmer Fudd could never.
Wait, say it again. Say it again.
It's Warren Row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Warren Row. Yeah. So when she comes and she kind of tells her story, and she's like been burned, like
Yeah.
her hair was cut off. She lost, I think, both her eyes or something, by the hands of men.
Boo.
Yeah. Yeah, men aren't but you know, so a lot of the reviews I read, actually, can I read
Yes,
some
please
of
read
the
reviews.
reviews?
Yes.
Yes.
Unless are there some topics you still want to
One
explore?
last thing I want
Let's
to
do
touch
it.
on page 302, she talks about this is when Dina is old and remarried and making the trip to go see Joseph as
Yeah.
he's dying.
Yeah, or Jacob.
Or
but she's
Jacob.
going with Joseph.
Jacob, she's going, yeah, my bad. And it talks about how she has this dream and her mothers come back to her after being dead, and they come back to, I'm going to cry. They come back to her and they kind of usher her into menopause.
I know, so beautiful.
Oh my God.
Beautiful.
I am getting like
Yeah,
chills
they like
just
all
talking about
visit
it.
her. Oh,
But it just like, it makes me so like sad and tingly and happy that like all these important parts of her life, her mothers are with her. And when she's the most lost is when she's the farthest from them. And
Yeah.
it just, I call my mom. I love it.
I love you, Mom. I'm gonna call my mom right now.
During this book, I connected with you, Kate, in your love for Paddington, because in this book, I was like, I just want a woman to fucking have a life with no
joyful
no
life.
sadness.
Let's just like rewind real quick. I'm in love with the Paddington Bear movies, but I've cried at both of them because like immediately like tragedy befalls this little cute bear, and I'm just like, can we have just like 10 minutes where nothing bad happens to the bear?
Kate's like, I just want to see a movie where a bear has a good time, and I was like, I
So
just want
much
to
to
read
ask.
a book with no problems, just all solutions.
This is why I watch Parks and Rec on repeat
Yes.
in
Oh,
these
yeah.
dark
Yeah,
times.
it's like I just want to read a book about a woman who just has happy things happen to her.
I don't
and
know.
she dies of old age.
After the election, I was so raw with Parks and Rec when the town like turns on her. I was just
Oh,
like, I
yes.
fucking cannot with fucking
true.
Pawnee.
Yeah.
Fuck you, MAGA hats. I hate them all.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying. I too would
Yeah.
like. We always talk about on our Handmaid's Tale podcast how like the wish we have for Elizabeth Moss, who's the main lady, who's Peggy from Mad Men, is that she gets to play a role where like all she does is like sit in bubble baths and like get her pussy ate and like, pet dogs and eat cupcakes, because she like
my
always
God.
picks such fucking harrowing roles. And I'm just
Yeah,
like, I
she
want
really
her to
does.
have a good time
Seriously,
for once.
a rom-com.
Yeah.
Liz, come on.
Please.
Hey, listeners, just popping in real quick to shout out our friends' podcast, FMK Lit. It's a hoot. Take a listen.
Hey, Claire.
Hey, Neil.
What you reading?
A romance novel.
Oh.
That was judgy. Have you even ever read one?
You know, I actually haven't. Why do you like them?
Because there's a book out there for everyone's thing. Whatever your thing is.
Really? What if your thing is finally having an office romance with that cute guy at the copier?
Yep.
What if your thing is firefighters?
Yep.
What if your thing is Bolshevik Russia?
Yep. No matter what your thing, there's always some fucking and a happy ending.
Like the kind of happy ending where people get married? Or like a massage parlor happy ending?
Oh, usually both.
Oh, what if I don't like the book?
Well, the best part is you can just play Fuck, Marry, Kill with the characters.
So we could play Fuck, Marry, Kill with literature.
Yes. Let's call it Fuck, Marry, Kill Lit.
Fuck, Marry, Kill Lit? That sounds like a podcast.
That's the podcast we do.
Oh! FMK Lit. Find us twice a month on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud.
You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah!
Doing it.
I explored the 1-star reviews on Goodreads.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So yeah, but the 1 stars are really fun.
Let's hear it.
All right.
One of these may have been written by my mom.
So excited.
I'll start us easy. Easy does it. Star Autumn Heart says, if she's going to write about sex, she could at least use the correct words for it and not some 4th grade vocabulary.
What?
I got so annoyed.
What?
I know.
Wait,
I
Molly
was
has thoughts. Wait.
perfectly happy
I'm
during those scenes.
so mad. I was so happy during the scenes. I assume she's using the words that she's using, which are like, I guess like sex to mean genitalia and stuff.
Yeah.
Because she's trying to be kind of old time
Biblical.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Yeah.
You're not going to say, like, go to town on Rachel or something.
No.
Yeah. Or like, I don't know.
Jacob pulled out some porn star moves. and-
Yeah.
He's got some scrote juice.
Ew.
More reviews. From Brandy from Goodreads says, so I started this book hoping to hear a good yarn about some characters from the Bible. What I got was a story full of lust. This story had so much talk of sex, masturbation, bestiality, and other things of the sort that I felt very uncomfortable. And I have 3 children. It's like, does that mean you've seen some shit, or does that mean like
So you've had
Also,
sex
how
at least
dare.
3
3
times.
times.
And even I don't like this book. I've had sex thrice.
yeah.
Oh my
I
God.
would never weep, seep, or queep, as those are the devil's doings.
All right, Brandy.
When I conceived my children, there was a sheet between us with a hole in the middle.
Which,
I've
no
never
hate, no
seen my
shade if
picture.
that's how you do, but this woman I don't like.
Another fun one I thought was from Jenna on Goodreads. Can we all say depressing novel worse than Clan of the Cave Bear?
Okay,
Worse
that
than
is
what? Wait, worse than
fucking
what?
bullshit.
Clan of the Cave Bear.
I have no idea
It's
what
like
this
a
is.
young
I do,
adult
gang.
female.
No, it is horrendous. Planet of the
Oh my
Cave Bear is like
God.
one of the worst books I've ever read, and everybody loses their fucking minds. Women of a certain age fucking love this book. It's a basically Neanderthal fan fiction where they're like,
Yes, I've never
all of
read it,
us
by
are
the way.
Neanderthals except this one who has huge jugs and is so good at sucking the D and shooting the mammoth. It's fucking dumb. Though I will say, John Delar, who's the romantic male lead in this, John Delar can get it, okay? But it's also like they make him like the person who invented cunnilingus, basically.
It's like that
Anyway.
slack jaw. It really has.
Clan of the Cave
really
Bear
lives in it.
can eat my ass and sucks, and Red Tent is amazing.
Oh my God, this is so funny. I love also how casually you threw out John Delar and it,
John Delar!
Yeah, it'd be so
John
much
Delar
funnier if
can
his name
get
was
it.
like Rog or something like really caveman.
So
Rog
literally-
can get it.
So literally, everybody else's name in the book is like Ugg or Rog, and the 2 leads are out of nowhere named Ayla and John Delar. It's like, fuck you.
John Delar. That's the next name
yeah.
of that's the name of my firstborn.
Meg, are you good at cunnilingus since you have a lot of Neanderthal in you?
I don't know. You'd have to ask.
Wait, is that because you have Neanderthal in your 23andMe?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was like in like 90th percentile or something. I was like, okay.
You do have a
prominent
you,
brow.
you do have a prominent brow.
And you
She
are
was
making a fire right now by hitting rocks together.
She could like deadlift the equivalent of a mammoth, so I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
That is so stupid because they are both books that talk about sex a lot in like a very fun to read way. But Clan of the Cave Bear is trifling, and this is a great work of literature. So fuck that person.
Okay, so here's some choice mail reviews.
Oh my God.
I've got a couple longer ones, but I just couldn't bear to snip it. Here's a shorty. Corey says, I will never finish reading this. Corey. He goes on to say, I hate misogynist books and I hate misandrist books even more because they are so hypocritical.
Fuck off.
Fuck off so hard right now, Corey.
Right the fuck off.
Men.
I hate
Corey.
misogyny, but what I hate more is women.
What I find so strange about that is I don't think that anybody could write a character like Jacob who we like so much until we don't that hates men.
So true.
Or Joseph even.
Or her, what's her second husband's name? Bilha? No, what's his name?
I don't remember his
He
name.
was a
'cause he's
sweetheart.
Very
And
sweet.
they had nice sex.
I think it was Rich.
I just want
They
them to have
weeped.
good
Rich.
sex together.
I think it's Richard.
Brian?
Oh no, wait, that's the guy my mom is dating. Oh, never mind. He's fine.
Benia?
Benia.
This is from Jonathan. I was disappointed. Instead of reading about pastoral Middle Eastern women of 1700 BC, I found myself reading about liberal and enlightened 20th century.
Fuck those enlightened women. Fuck them.
Enlightened 20th century Western women who just happened to be herding sheep in 1700 BC. The men, of course, are timeless two-dimensional characters of ape-like males who molest children, have sex with sheep in the fields every night, lead poorly, stink horribly, and eat everything. In parentheses, except for the one hero man in each generation who looks gorgeous, treats women like equals, falls head over heels in love, and is amazing in bed the first time every time.
What is he actually talking about?
Jonathan, you have some
Bud.
inside searching you need to do.
Oh my God. I hate these books where women get treated like equals. Fuck that.
I'm trying to read about pastoral life.
Trying to get a picture of what it was like to be a shepherd.
Why did you buy a book called The Red Tent, people?
Why are you reading this?
Bruh, there's a woman on the cover.
Read the blurb on the back.
What did you expect?
I have one more review to read. Joe on Goodreads says, I did not finish reading this book because on a personal level, I found it too disgusting. To begin with, it seemed that the book centered around the menstrual period of women. Yes, I know it is a fact of life, but come on. Do you have to be so uncouth?
Oh my God.
Okay, Joe. I lose a lot of respect for authors who feel that by writing about such basic human things, that they somehow are being truthful and honest. Can I deal with life? Sure. But that isn't the point. When I was in basic training in the Army,
Here we go.
we still had the old wooden barracks and the row of toilets with no privacy between them. In high school, we had swimming and PE where we swam nude. However,
What?
Nope.
Wait, that's not okay. You should have called the authorities.
Who was your coach? Who was your coach?
I'm
Was
not-
it at Penn State? This is not good.
However, I'm not going to write about the guy who digs in his nose and eats snot.
Babe.
That is like what he's comparing
Joe.
writing about menstruation to.
But also, write that book. Like,
Sure.
Yeah, write about.
Also, I'm sure Chuck Palahniuk has already written that book.
Yeah.
Like, fuck
So true.
off.
Come on.
Fuck off. We need
Anywho.
to expand what's acceptable to describe in literature.
Right. Yeah.
And in everything, to be honest.
That review made no sense.
No, none of the sense.
Men, are you okay?
So here's the thing is that, like, I do feel like men think that and this extends to a lot of men I know, is that men think that they get really uncomfortable when something isn't made for them because their whole life, everything has been made for, about, around, geared towards, built around, shoved in their faces. Like, and so just once when there's like a Ghostbusters that like maybe one time.
my God,
like,
read
like
my
sexualizes
fucking labias.
a man, they flip the fuck out. And it's like,
Read my labias.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters 2020. Fuck that noise.
They're
I'm boycotting that bullshit unless Leslie Jones is in it. Do you guys know about this?
they're remaking it with,
with men.
Yeah.
No.
Yes. Meg.
Oh,
I don't care, but honestly, whatever. There's movie. Sure, there's lots. Yes, any movie is welcome to be made. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
But it's like when the women's remake was made, it was like fucking World War III.
Right.
And when a book like The Red Tent gets written that happens to not mention like the male plight for 2 seconds,
yeah.
they flip out.
I know.
And a lot of the male reviews were and even some of the female reviews were just like, there's not one good man in this book. She obviously hates men. She's like a
Internalized misogyny is a
feminist.
bitch.
Oh
Nazi.
my God, it is. It
just like-
really is.
And to me, also because of like the whole Gillette thing and how men just feel like this is an attack on them as a whole species. And I'm like, it's not. This is saying like, there are bad men. Like, you can't deny that. There are shitty dudes out there. Some who, have sex with sheep in 1700 BC. And there are some who catcall women and bully people online or, rape and murder.
And if you're defensive of that, then look into yourself.
Yeah, look
Why
over
are you
here, dude.
defensive?
And if anything, they're missing, like I said, a big part of the Red Tent too is I think that Anita Diamant is questioning the ritual of circumcision, which is a huge deal for a Jewish scholar to be kind of like tiptoeing around questioning circumcision. So if I was a man, that is the part that I would latch on to and be like, what is she trying to say here? What can we glean from this? This is the part that is explicitly about us.
Yeah.
How do I feel about this?
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
point.
Instead of being like, oh, periods, I don't write about my nose boogers.
This is some chick book.
Vicious, 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 vicious cycle.
I have a question. A la Sex in the City, who do you think you are out of Dina's moms?
Can you give us the archetype of
Yes,
each one?
yes.
So Leah. So this is my own personal
Do it. That's
archetype.
fine. Great.
I feel like Molly, since she's read it twice, might have a better. But I think of Leah as being capable and focused. Rachel as being beautiful and creative. Zilpah as being kooky and spiritual. And Bilhah as being quiet and sweet.
Right. And Bilhah is, I think, like the ingenue, like the young special one.
Interesting. I like that.
I feel like it depends on what group I'm in.
Interesting. I mean,
Because-
I also don't think we all have to like be only one. Like
Sure.
there can be
Right.
2 Carries in this group.
Right. As a Carrie,
You're such a. I think we all want to be Carries right now.
I feel like I am a. I feel like I'm a Leah in the streets and a Rachel in the sheep. If I may be so bold.
I like that.
I would say.
I like that.
I was gonna say I feel like I'm a Leah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. She's got
What about
one
you guys?
green eye, one blue eye.
No idea. I
I feel like you're Bilhah. Wait, which one's Bilhah again?
quiet.
Bilhah is like the
Kooky?
youngest one.
Which was
I
the
think
kooky
you're
one?
Zilpah.
You're
I think
Zilpah.
Zilpah.
You're definitely Zilpah, Meg.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like a very Phoebe-esque character.
Yes. Oh my God.
Also-
Zilpah is the Phoebe.
So it's a Phoebes.
If she's the Phoebes, then that's me.
Leah's the Monica.
Poor
And I'm Monica.
Rachel's the Rachel.
Oh
Yes.
This is my favorite
shit.
podcast I've ever
Wait, which one would you say you are, Meg?
I don't know, because I feel like I also feel most like Leah, but with a little Bilhah, I think. Because I think, I can be that like quiet, and I also like really like love my girls,
Yeah.
and I feel
Yeah.
like that's like something that Bilhah like was like, she was so there for Rachel, and I was
Yeah.
like, I really
Yeah,
like
you are that.
I try that.
You're
I
nurturing.
try to be.
Well, Molly, thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
guys.
being
Thank you.
on Vicious Cycle and talking about the Red Tent. Should we close it off with a theme song again?
Periods in a book.
I think I'll take a
look. We love to read. We have to bleed. A bleeding rainbow. Bleeding rainbow. Bleeding rainbow. But don't take my word for it.
Read the book for yourself. Yay. Okay, well, I want to do a Why I Cried this week. Meg, want to hit us with the Why I Cried theme song?
Why did I cry this week? Cry this week. Nobody's supposed to be here when I talk about why I cried this week.
I just walked into this recording from having watched the Broadway musical Come From Away. It's on tour in San Francisco as we speak, and I went to a matinee, fun employment. It has everything a musical, because you guys know that I cry at musicals like right off. When I saw Hairspray, when I saw Lion King, all the times I've seen Hamilton, you just
When people come together for
when people
music.
come together for song and sing a wall of music at you, and you're just like, oh my god, like I cry. But this not only was that, it had so Come From Away is about the true story of the 38 planes that were grounded in a small town in Newfoundland at 9/11. On 9/11, and this town of 7,000 people that rallied together to house the 7,000 people that were on planes from all over the world. They had to make food and house them and feed them, and it was like 5 days of just like humanity coming together. So not only is this a musical about that, it's about collective memory, it's about coming together, a national tragedy, acts of selflessness. And I knew that this play would hit me, and I sat down, and as soon as it started, I just was weeping the entire time, just like single tears out of both my eyes the whole time. I wasn't like sobbing. It was just my reaction was just to cry. It was so flippin' beautiful. It's just like lovely, and it's just like coming together, collective, and especially in our time now, because the whole theme of this story is like, and of this town is like, you would have done the same, like anyone would have done this, and it's like, I don't know, would we have this America? Would we have just dropped everything and like taken care of 7,000 people? I don't think this government would. So thank you, Canada.
Maybe the people would.
The people would, but
Yeah.
our leaders would not.
No, our
And-
leaders wouldn't.
And
But it just makes me like, with all this bullshit that's going on high up, it just reminds me that like we're better than that.
Yes, people
and like
are good.
we would look out for each
Yeah.
other.
Welcome to the friends who have come from away. Welcome to the locals who have always said they'd stay. If you're coming from Toledo or you're coming from Taipei, because we come from everywhere, we all come from away. Welcome to the rock.
I cried reading this book at the very end. Good. It wasn't even like a poignant like line necessarily. I think it was just talking about women like being with each other to fend off the loneliness of like childbearing. And it just made me think of how beautiful that is. I know. And then like a single tear trickled down my face. And also those last lines about her talking about her name, like the two syllables, one sweet and like one high, and that was so beautiful. The like power of a name and how your name can carry like your whole story.
Yes.
So beautiful.
I cried too hard at the trailer for the miniseries of Red Tits.
Oh, we're
And I'm
gonna have to
tell you,
watch
it's
that.
good.
Is it? Okay, it looked like
Really?
it's pretty good. And it's got Minnie Driver in it.
Oh,
Marina
wow.
Baccarin.
Wow.
Minnie Driver plays Leia, I believe.
I think so.
Feels like it's whitewashing a little bit.
So I meant to do my research on this because they mention when she goes to Egypt that she's like, wow, there's black people. And I was like,
Oh
wait
my
a minute.
god. Yeah.
I'm confused. So I didn't do any research on like,
Yeah.
if you're from biblical
they-
times, why are you white? But I don't really know.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
I can't tell if it's whitewashing or like,
Or they
legit
legit could have been.
white
They
people
could
are
have
there.
been
Yeah.
not so
Like
dark
Mediterranean.
as yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they
Because-
talk so much shit about is it Bilha?
Yeah, Bilha. Yeah.
My God, they're like, her hair was like, we didn't know what to do with her hair, so she was horribly cast aside. I'm like, what the fuck, people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow. Sorry. So you cried.
That was it. Like to the point where I like thought I was actually going to just need to cry. So I was like, okay, it's just the music.
You're such a Bilha.
I really am.
It's worth a watch.
Why did you cry this week?
Well, I practice this the same way Meg practices talking to Mark Maron. Like I have thought about this when I'm not on the podcast. But this week I had a very Kate moment where I like cried because I was verklempt at the Women's March because I was there with my mom. And also something that like is a cry trigger for me recently is like young little women being out in the world and being happy and smart and empowered.
Yes.
So I saw all these like young girls with signs and I just fucking lost it. And the most notable other time I have lost it seeing something like this is when I went to go see Lady Gaga at Giant Stadium. First of all, I had a handicap. I was drunk. My friend and I got way too drunk and saw Lady Gaga, and there was a little girl next to me, and I started bawling. And she was there with her mom, and poor baby, some adult woman, me with like gin breath, leaned over to her and said, "Listen to me. If you ever feel different or weird or like you don't belong, look at all these people. Okay, you belong with us.
You're
all
born
right?
this way.
Okay, good talk." And at the moment, I'm like, this is the most profound thing I can impart on the next generation.
This girl's
She
gonna
will remember me and treasure me. And in retrospect, it's like, no, you're fucking weird. But I had a sense of that feeling at the women's march.
I love that
Nice.
the presence of young empowered girls makes you cry. That's
Yeah.
nice.
Always rock on, tiny bitches.
Yes.
All right, well, that wraps up this episode where we talked about the red tent and we talked about Sex and the City characters and we talked
And
about
Friends characters in it.
Rachel's are always
Rachel's. And
If you like this kind of like very rambling, very silly yet profound book talk, please listen to my podcast. It's called Read All Over, a Handmaid's Tale recap.
Yes.
It's basically everywhere where you get podcasts. And we make the Handmaid's Tale fun again.
yay, which is needed.
You make it bearable.
Shout out to my BFF, Kelly Anakin, who runs it with me.
Yay.
And if you guys have any thoughts about the red tent, please call our hotline. We'd love to hear your 5-star reviews. So Corey and John, you can just zip it. 9106 uterus. Call our hotline and let us know what you thought about the red tent. Hey, listeners, join us next week when we interview Liz Plank. You've seen Liz on various amazing videos for Mike and Vox, and she's a regular on MSNBC, so she's kind of a big deal. She goes on there to talk about women in politics, feminism, and shit on Trump. It's very enjoyable. She's with us next week to talk about her menstrual journey, and we had so much fun talking to her, so we can't wait for you to hear it. In the meantime, follow us on Instagram, please rate and review us, and always remember, keep calm.
And bleed everywhere.
It may be primal, it may be vital, but it makes you homicidal. It's a vicious, it's a vicious, it's a vicious cycle.
Our theme song was performed by The Go Ahead. Check out more at thegoaheadmusic.com.